Welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. We're excited to share diverse perspectives and expert insights with you. Please note that the views and information expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the AlphaWarrior Show, its management, or our partners. Each of our affiliates and sponsors and partnerships is a separate entity, and their opinions are their own. Today's content is provided for information and educational purposes and should not be taken as specific advice, whether it be financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your specific situation. We provide all information as is and encourage you to consult with a professional advisor to address your specific individual needs. Your use of any information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By listening further, you agree to identify and protect the AlphaWarrior Show and its associates from any claims or damages arising from your use of this broadcast content. Changes to this disclaimer may be made at any time and will be done effectively immediately upon posting or broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you find the episode both informative and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, A Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
How's it going, everybody? It is Monday. We're more than halfway through the year, and it's been a long time since I've had these two fantastic gentlemen on the show. And the last time they were here, the views were out of control. The comments were out of control because we had a good time. You guys have heard the conversation of Q. For some of you that are new to this audience, this is a new conversation. You're like, what is this? There's a lot of great people that have vast amount of knowledge when it comes to the conversation around Q. These two men are at the top, if not at the top, of the list of people that I trust with the understanding, the interpretation, and the ability to explain it to where we can be like, all right, I get that. That makes sense. I like this decode. And given what happened to our president and former president, Donald Trump, I'm very curious to how does Q play into this? I've been so tempted to watch the show that these guys did last week because I know they tackled this subject, but I wanted to be impressed with you, the audience. So I'm going to be hearing it with you guys for the first time. We won't have the time to go into their entire decode. So down in the description, if you go to where it says links to this show, you will find the link to the podcast that they did just a few days ago that goes into the details of that In addition to that, you'll also find the way to find them on X and the way to find them on Truth. So with that, I hope you guys are as stoked as I am. So let's get to 2 quick sponsors. And then after that, we're commercial free for the rest of this show. So first on deck, you guys, Goldco, be prepared. It's easy. It's fast. The rich are buying gold. The rich are buying silver. You might want to know why. So go and visit my partners at alphalikesgold.com to figure it out. Digital dollar, Big Brother, IRS. Here's the thing, you guys. There is a lot of chaos going on. Is Biden the president? Is Biden even alive? I don't know. But here's the thing. Don't risk your money. Don't risk your savings with it. Visit alphalikesgold.com. Get your free 2024 gold IRA kit right now and at least arm yourself with the information to know whether you want to do this or you don't. There's huge incentives like $10,000 worth in free silver to safeguard your savings when you open up a qualified account. So once again, you guys figure that out. Visit alphalikesgold.com. And then our last commercial, and we're commercial free until the end of this, America's favorite mustache with a new ad and a new discount. And I will see you guys with my guest in 60 seconds.
You ask and we listen. We're finally bringing the most requested offer ever. Get the queen size premium MyPillow, now only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long so you get the best sleep of your life. But that's not all. Get our 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets only $25. Our brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. Get our famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25 and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen size MyPillow, only $19.98. That's the lowest price ever. Don't delay, order today. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
Mike, it is freaking 80s, 70s styles commercial. Real quick before they bring the guests on, Icy6, he's watching on X. He says, this streaming on Rumble? If so, where? Go to Rumble and just type in the search bar AlphaWarrior Show and you will find the show right now in case you don't want to watch it on X. So let me bring on the guests for tonight, you guys. Paul, Joe, you guys, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it very, very much. How you guys been doing?
Doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm solid, man. I'm excited. I feel like it's been a good minute since the last time we all did a show together. And why is it, man? Why is it? You guys must be too busy. I don't want to take the blame for this one.
I think we're all busy and we all kind of suck at communication sometimes when it comes to setting up shows, man. No, I think it's more getting schedules to line up, dude. And I think it's a lot of letting people come around organically to what's going on too before me and Joe can really kind of, especially for your audience, no offense intended, man, but your audience is not a Q audience. So you don't want to beat them over the head with it because then they kind of refuse it. You know, the same thing we've seen with a lot of folks taking the red pill, right? So, but I think now where we stand now, especially the events over the last month or so, I think it's pretty obvious that Q is a something and it's time for it to enter the conversation in a bigger way.
It's absolutely a something. Joe, how you been, man?
Awesome, man. Yeah. You don't call, you don't write. I'll come on.
I know. You know what? Like Paul said, you know what? We're in the heat of battle, you guys. That's what it is. And there's a lot going on. But I consider you both brothers. I consider you both friends. And as you guys heard, you know, when I was telling my audience about you guys, I hold you guys in a very high respect, not just in the community of digital soldiers and anons, but just who you both are as men. You know, even though we don't get to communicate all the time, I am aware of the work you guys do. And the work is truly a testament to your guys' character. But let's start off here at probably the basic question, because there are a lot of people in my audience that are either like, I've heard of Q, this is a bunch of BS, or people that are like, I've never heard about this before. What the heck is it? And then there's always the ones that are in here that are going to be in the chat and they're going to be trying to teach us about it in the chat, and we can always learn from each other. So that's cool. But for the ones that are very new to it, what would you guys describe Q as in its simplest form?
Joe, I'll let you take this one first, buddy.
Yeah. So I would describe it as a military intelligence program that was set up to circumvent the mainstream media, provide crumbs, if you will, little nuggets of information that was more of a laser pointer for us to fill in the blanks. But that's what it exactly did. They were dropped on 4chan, went over to 8chan, and then over to 8kun. But you can find these drops on aggregators, and the one that Paul and I use the most is qag.news. There's also Q alerts. There's the apps have kind of a different touch and feel to them. Some are better at other things than others, but so you don't have to go trying to sift through message boards and do all these things. They've been pulled over, and you can scroll through them on your phone or a PC, whatever. And Q hasn't dropped since 2022, but they were aligned in a certain way where what's called deltas. So everything that was dropped like in 2018 kind of swung around this year, for instance. And Q mentioned future proves past. So Q is letting us know, and a couple times, like Q would bring up a subject and it wasn't like in the news, and someone on said, "Why are you putting this now?" And Q would say for future. So, and Q said, "You have much more than you know," and it's proven true. So on our show on Eye of the Storm, we have a few different shows and a few different formats, but for the most part, we're relating those communications that are still going on today. They're still bouncing off these Q drops. They're bouncing off of what Donald Trump says and puts in his Truth Social feed, Dan Scavino, even General Flynn at times. And they relate to the current news as of today. And they give us, it's a lot of future proofs past. So you'll see something in the news and it relates back to the drops, and then you can kind of piece it all together. We did have a few insight of directional things that we saw coming, and we talk about those on the show. One of the segments we do on the show is called Q Proofs. So that's like the first thing that people always want to know about is, what's the big deal? It could be anybody. No, it can't be anybody, because the information that is given with foreknowledge is the tippy top, the tippy top of clearance that you would have this information. Like, what is Donald Trump going to post in 10 minutes? What legislation that's not yet public is coming out? Is the Pope going to change the Lord's Prayer? These are all things, when is John McCain going to be exited off the chessboard? So the Q Proof episodes, I think we've recorded. So we do them once a week, but then we've capsulated all those Q Proofs in recorded shows, and we put those out there. So I know it's show 49 and 53, and I think we had another one recently, but those are a really good point to start. But also what we do on the show is Q and review. So when we started the show, we started at a point in time on purpose. So the Q drop started on October 28th, 2017. Paul and I talked about doing this show for almost like a couple of years. But what we wanted to do was time it where we thought the deltas would line up. So we started our show as close to that October 28th date. Our first show was on November 1st, 2022, I believe, or 20. Yeah. We've been doing it almost 2 years, 2022. So we do, Paul really handles that part on the back end of the show, is the Q and review. So we cover like 15 or so Qs or so. And they also relate to current news because of the way we set up the show format and the timing. So we have, the different deltas that are coming up in today's comms. And then when we do the review, we explain it. So if people want to jump in and kind of learn, they would just find Eye of the Storm, go back to like episode 1, and you can find the Q and reviews. And I think Paul should start scraping those off and putting those into recorded shows as well. I think we started to do that.
Yeah, I've definitely started to do that. It's been a task to start going back. I've been going back through the episodes, and I'd say I've probably got a quarter of them done, and that's between the Q and reviews, the current comms, and then we started doing America First and We the People, and the Q for Dummies stuff, and the Down the Rabbit Hole segment. So I've been getting all that stuff together. So the next step is going to be to finish scraping it and then start uploading it to the Rumble. It's a work in progress. But it's coming. It's almost going to be a complete catalog of Q by the time I'm done with it. And I've got my Q for Dummies series I write on Badlands as well, which is an even lower level take of the Q drops from the beginning, where I purposely leave out the super complex connections and stuff like that to kind of give people a ground floor into Q, so they don't feel so overwhelmed by it, which is something we hear a lot by people trying to get into Q for the first time, as they start reading them and they just feel so overwhelmed and lost. So, between Q for Dummies and the show and Joe's channel and my channel and even our buddy Patriots in Progress, who once a week puts out a very high level take on the Q drops in his own review as well, which he actually started quite a while ago. Between all three of those options, man, you can get a almost complete look and breakdown and analysis of what Q is. And me and Joe have 2 shows a week, and we spend a large amount of time breaking down how the Q drops are still hitting the relevant events, probably even more so now than I can ever recall them doing. To the point that we're going to be starting a 3rd episode a week in August, because we literally can't keep up right now, Alpha. Like, we'll go through a Tuesday show, and when we first started the show, man, you go back and start watching the first episodes. Those first maybe dozen episodes, Joe, they're maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours long, and now you go back and watch a Tuesday episode, and they're up to 3.5, 4 hours long now. And then Fridays, it's an hour and a half, and we're literally leaving stuff on the chopping block on Fridays that we just don't have the time to show, that ends up being straight slammers that we could have been out in front of if not for having to cut shows short or cut stuff off the show. So Sundays are going to provide another great opportunity to stay current and caught up with things. So we'll have Tuesdays, Fridays, Sundays. We'll be able to have a lot of updates going on Q. Joe is going to be launching his own Substack very, very soon, which I'm going to highly recommend people go get subscribed to that thing, because Joe, if you don't follow Joe's Telegram channel, it's almost all day, every day. He's popping out these Q connections he's seeing, man. And it really helps you stay on top of things. And more so, it helps people stay calm, not in a sit home and do nothing way, but in a, hey, we're not alone right here way. If we do our part, there is somebody else doing their part. And so that's kind of an overarching theme of the Q drops too, which a lot of folks kind of got wrong off the get-go. And a lot of those folks that got it wrong, we've since found out were not legitimate players, right? They were influencers that were specifically placed to slide the message off to the side. And it's very evident in a lot of the Q drops. Q's telling us we're the plan. There's not some magical military takeover that's going to happen. That's a completely wrong narrative. That's to my mind, and I'm pretty sure Joe agrees, military is the only way, means the military intelligence that Joe spoke of, that when you're able to take military intelligence and go around the 3-letter bureaucratic agencies and get that intelligence right in the president's hands, you can get a lot of shit done behind the scenes to take these people down. So that's one of the ways. And I noticed last week watching the RNC, Alpha, maybe you noticed this as well, but did you notice that almost everybody running for office for the first time was former military? And so that kind of screamed to me as well. Military is the only way. Let's get people who serve their country and are willing to take that another step and go up on Capitol Hill and fix it with what they know and their allegiance from the oath and so forth and so on. But it's a military intelligence operation, man. It's the largest info drop ever put into the public space, and it was done with purpose and big ambiguity. It was done purposely vague because there were national security laws that had to be adhered to, and operational security and things of that nature. There's purposeful misinformation and disinformation in there, because the drops are not just for us. Some of them are put there as well to throw the deep state off and to keep them on their toes and fearful and whatnot. So it really requires a lot of discernment and digging. But I'm telling you, man, you've seen it firsthand yourself, Alpha, how much stuff smacks off that board that's just like, get out of here. How is that even possible unless there's something bigger going on here? And it kind of plays into devolution. We've had John on the show before, and we've chatted with John before, and it's kind of my stance that the Q drops are laying out the reasons for devolution and why we're going to go that way. And we had Colonel Watkins on a couple weeks ago, and we were banging the Q drops off of Gladio, and it's almost like the Q drops that they're explaining you how we're subverting Operation Gladio and bringing that to a stop. It's really, really fascinating how all of this is almost out of nowhere just starting to converge on the one road, man. All the exits are going right onto the interstate at this point. Sorry, I got really long-winded there.
No, I love you wrapping it, because one, I like the visuals of what you're explaining and picturing in my head. And like I said, I know in the audience we have people that are very advanced and we have people that's very new for. What I will say, one question before we get into the meat and potatoes here. How many years have you been doing this, Joe? And then how many years have you been doing this, Paul?
So as far as being like into alternative media, that started with the Vegas shooting for me. I was always like a conservative, but I would say I was a normie conservative. And then when the Vegas shooting happened, October 1st of 2017, I was like, there's nothing about what we're hearing makes any sense whatsoever. And I just didn't believe any of it. I didn't believe that one person could do it. I didn't believe that all the people with cell phones, all the video cameras were not getting any information. It just wouldn't happen that way. The angles from where the window they say Paddock was and where people allegedly were hit, just none of it from any position that you could talk about. Like one guy doing it, you know, and where's the video? Where is like actual video of him doing anything? So my mind just was like, for like 3 straight days, was just head deep into alternative media, and that led me to you know, the boards and 4chan and that type of thing. So that was October 1st, and then on the 28th, the Q operation started. So that's when I caught it. And I didn't even have a Twitter at the time. So I built a Twitter account like immediately after that. And my whole goal with the Twitter account was just to follow POTUS, because I saw the way the drops, and I would hear POTUS say something, and I knew that I read it in the drop. So I was like, shoot, I gotta build a Twitter account just to follow these communications back and forth with Trump at the time. I had absolutely no plans to be a citizen journalist or start a show or anything like that. And I just started seeing the communications. So I started writing my own posts at the time, and people took to them, thought I had good takes and whatnot. And then, you know, we all got booted off of Twitter, and we set up the Telegram channel, We the Media, really just for people like Paul and myself, just to you know, support each other. We were just in this room of like 50 of us, just to kind of, you know, support each other and figure out things together and bounce ideas off of each other. And then from that room, we decided, let's kind of, you know, share ideas out to the public. And we started We the Media publicly posting. And then from that really spun out Badlands. And that's where shortly after we spun out Badlands, John approached Paul and I to do Eye of the Storm.
Which is phenomenal. How many years have you been doing it, Paul?
So the Q thing, I mean, I was on 4chan for a couple years before Q popped up, and there had been a couple other, you know, anons over there on 4chan at the time who had popped up with so-called insider information. There was one called FBI anon, there was one called Meganon, there was a high-level insider anon, and some of them that popped up were LARPs, which means live action role play. Basically, essentially means somebody's bullshitting for clicks and to get attention. There's no truth to what they're saying. And there were a couple of them that were super legit. FBI anon pretty much told everybody about the spying and Russiagate and the Trump spying at Trump Tower before it happened and before Q was a thing. So, you know, that said, I remember being on the boards when Q first posted, and I don't mean like the second he first posted, but I mean within an hour, and I saw the post, and my first thought was, oh great, here we go with another one of these LARPs, like another one of these fools popping up on the boards claiming to have inside information. And it wasn't until the Saudi Arabia takedown, which was less than a week after Q first started posting. But it was when the Saudi Arabia takedown started happening and all the information Q was dropping adjacent to that where I took a step back and I was like, holy shit, there's no way that this is just somebody hacking at a keyboard guessing. And as Joe pointed out, one of the very first things that showed the legitimacy to me was Q is talking about the Lord's Prayer, and you need to pay attention to it. And everybody at the time was like, okay, cool, I'm a Christian, but why do I need to pay more attention to it? And then 2 weeks later, it comes out that the Pope is thinking about changing the Lord's Prayer. I remember everybody on the boards at that time is like, I'm pretty sure I don't have access to that kind of intel. I don't know when the Pope's going to change the Lord's Prayer, dude. And so people began taking it a lot more seriously at that point. And then you start seeing it unfold and pop, man. So I've kind of been just like Joe around the Q drops from almost damn near the get-go, dude. As far as looking for truth and digging and red pills and all that, basically since I was a kid. I mean, I've 10, 11 years old, I've always been off the rails looking for truth. When I was JFK, the movie came out when I was 10 years old. And that's basically what started it. That and listening to Coast in the Morning with Art Bell with my dad. That was what got it going, man. So my whole life I've always kind of been digging and looking, but not super serious like this. Probably until Pizzagate 2016 is what really kind of ignited that fire in me again. Because until that point I was pretty black pilled. I knew everything was pretty much effed and everything was controlled by these power players behind the scenes. Until Pizzagate dropped, I had no idea that they were actually satanic pedophiles. So that you would think that would black pill somebody harder, but that ignited a fire in me. That's hell no. We gotta stop this. And then it was shortly after that you see Comey reopen the investigation into Hillary's emails, which I will go to my grave saying had an effect on that election. And then you saw Trump speak at the Al Smith dinner where he's throwing them all under the bus, and then he wins the election. And the black pill was gone because you're just like, clearly something is going on here that has circumvented what their plans were to completely drive this country into a cliff.
Well,
Off the cliff, rather.
And the reason I ask both you gentlemen this question is because when I go to court and I'm going to speak on gangs, I have to give my CV in front of the jury. So the jury's like, hey, well, who's this cop or detective that's up here? And what gives this person the authority to talk on the matter? And that's why I ask you, so people can see that just between the two of you guys, just on this, there's over almost at least a decade and a half of experience. And that's important. It's important that people hear that, no, this is not some hobby you just picked up, last year. And even though it's, a decade and a half, people still can't comprehend the amount of hours and investment and vetting and studying and research that you've done independently and that you guys have done as a team. And I wanted to put that at the forefront of this so people can understand, hey, there's legitimate research between these two men right here that we're going to talk about. And I think that's important. And I think it's really important, especially with what you guys are bringing up, with Pizzagate, with the Vegas shooting. We just had, President Donald Trump. They tried to take this dude out. That at least optically, that's what the world has seen.
Right.
Does this seem reminiscent of those types of false flag operations or real operations you guys have seen in the back? And if that's the case, I will turn it over to you guys, and I have my notepad and my pen ready to ask you guys questions. Where do you guys want to start with this thing? You guys want to start with Trump? Is there something else you want to start? I'll give it to you guys, and I'll trust your direction.
I think for me, before we get into this, it's important to note that if you've never watched myself or Joe before or watched the show, we are very, very, very open-minded, and there's very little that Joe and I will dismiss outright until it's absolutely dismissible, until there's 100% certainty you can dismiss that thing as a possibility, right? This assassination was absolutely a false flag. Now, where it came from, the overall methods, all that involved, that's open for interpretation right now. We could certainly show you things from the cue boards right now that seem to portend that the White Hats knew this was coming and knew that something like this was going to happen. And there's certainly enough out there to make a strong case for that. Now, I don't know yet if I'm willing to go as far as to say good guys did all this. I don't know that I'm ready to make that leap, but I'm not going to dismiss it, dude, because when you go all the way back to Sandy Hook, okay, and you realize that all of those families had their houses paid off beforehand, that there were no cameras or video footage present from any of these funerals, that there were crisis actors present, that there were ads for crisis actors beforehand, it becomes real clear that some of these things can be, if maybe not completely faked, at least put on so that agendas can be driven, right? The Boston bombing, very much the same, man. I remember the first couple days after the Boston bombing, getting all over YouTube and the internet looking at stuff because it just didn't feel right to me, right? And there's that picture of the guy in the wheelchair with the bottom half of his left leg blown off, right? And then you come to realize that guy was actually an Afghan war vet who lost the bottom half of his left leg in the war, and it was all makeup. So then if they're willing to do that, what won't they do to try to push an agenda, right? So I said months ago on the show, man, when we're talking about think mirror, which is one of Q's biggest phrases, right? That could also be up to and include pulling off our own false flags against them. That's the same shit they've done to us for about 100 years now to drive society in certain directions and keep us in fear. So I'm not saying what it was or wasn't. I'm personally of the opinion that we saw a little bit of divine intervention there, and that it was kind of God saying, "Hey, I'm here, and this is done." It's really crazy how everything seems to have completely shifted 180, and the pedal has went to the metal ever since that. Me and Barbara just went down to the beach. We went to Myrtle Beach, and Trump people everywhere, dude. It's like overnight the switch flipped, and nobody's afraid to say they're a Trump person anymore. I mean, almost every gas station I stopped in, you'd see people wearing Trump hats, Trump shirts. And so I guess to that end, I'm saying the reason I can't dismiss any possibility here is if I was the person putting this thing together, the effect after the fact is exactly what I would want to happen. People are starting to realize how dirty and nasty and evil these people are. We got a president we haven't seen since he announced on a piece of paper without the proper letterhead or White House addressing on it. A nice verbal typo there, but without the proper stuff on the paper to prove it was actually him. The signature was different. Nobody's actually seen this dude since he got home from Vegas. Okay, so it's the speed at which these things are picking up, man. This is not me putting hopium out there. I truly believe good guys are in control, and you are witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard, of the DNC, and even of the rhinos in the RNC. Man, it's all being driven off a cliff, and everything's being exposed right now. Joe, I know you have a lot more eloquence you can add to that, man. So please, the floor is yours.
Where I'd like to start is what you're talking about, like kind of the speed of things that are going on. So I recently did a post, and I'll try to remember as best I can, but. So on June 26th, all of Twitter, all the left was telling us that Biden was doing great and that he was going to have this tremendous debate. He's ready. He's been prepping at Camp David. He's going to crush it. He's going to bury Trump, and away we go with Biden. That was all we heard, was how great his mind was working, how prepared he was. Trump, look out. Trump is afraid. And how'd that go? So the next day, worst debate in history for the Democrats. Okay. So that was on the 27th. From there, we have the event with Trump that you're talking about on the 13th of July. From there, on the 17th, key number, cute, right? On the 17th, Biden comes down with COVID. Something also that we showed as far as comms go on the show. And then from there, Trump has this blockbuster RNC, and he ends the RNC with the theme song to Sum of All Fears, which is in the Q drops as a major thing. Paul talks about it all the time, how that relates to like this big deep state cleaning out, like big time, like blowing up cars and just wiping out the deep state, right? So that was on the 18th, I believe. The next morning we wake up, Sheila Jackson Lee, who's also in the Q drops as being a major player in the deep state, she's gone. She passes away, cancer. And then on the 21st, we wake up and Joe Biden is out of the race. So think of the speed of that in about 23 days, how we went from everybody on the left telling us Biden's going to crush Trump to 23 days later, he's out. He's done. Okay. So, just it's been like a buckle up. Paul and I have been saying it's going to be a hot summer. We're going to be, like Paul said, we've extended the Tuesday show to 4 hours at times, even more sometimes. And now we're going to do a third show starting August 25th to have that Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, kind of every other day. And then if something big pops up, Paul and I will jump on a live and hit it in between. But the speed of what just happened the past 23 days is also going to repeat here in August, and November is just going to be crazy. There's things that Q calls it a hot summer, and Q says, August, specifically August, is traditionally a very hot month. So what I see going forward in the future, and you can see it kind of laying out, that Q points to like a scare necessary event that really kind of shakes everybody up. And Q even talks about like DEF CON and different things that makes you tend to think that there might be like a nuclear false flag. So now we have a guy who just came out in public and signed a letter that said that he can't mentally put it together come November, right? And he's still in charge, right? and he still has the keys to the kingdom. He still has the nuclear football. He has all these things. All right. And he also supposedly, we don't know for sure how he's doing with COVID. He did a call-in show today, not on camera, to wish Kamala well. We haven't seen him still since July 5th, I believe. So Q points to that really Russia, China, and others are actually working with Trump to take down the deep state. So what I personally see coming is aggression from those countries to put Biden on the world stage where, hey, we got to exit this guy immediately. And so, I see China going into Taiwan. Trump himself said after the Olympics, everybody kind of assumed when Trump said it, he meant the 22 Olympics, which were in China. So it made sense. Everybody said, oh, Trump doesn't say things that later really don't pan out to be true. He says these things on purpose, and he trolls about it. So the Olympics start July 26th, go to August 11th. So I wouldn't be surprised if right after that, China goes into Taiwan and those types of things happen. Russia will probably come up and start threatening, obviously with Ukraine and other things here. Biden in the Middle East is breaking down and nobody's patching that up. So that could get further lit. But you have to understand why we're doing it. We're bubbling this all up in this transition period. I personally think, so we kind of rotate some players, and Q points to that as look for a change of batter, which basically that's what that's going to force. Either Biden will just exit himself with comes down with COVID so bad that he passes, or they have to formally put him out with the 25th Amendment, or whatever the case is. Now, Trump himself, not Stormy Joe or Paul, has come up with the idea that Camilla, for whatever reason, is ineligible to be president. And he was asked, if you say that, shouldn't she be not eligible to be vice president? And Donald Trump has said, well, that was up to Biden to vet that, not up to me. He's like, but I have authority that says that she's not eligible to be president. And he points to an attorney who's now when you look at it currently, she is eligible, that she was born in the U.S. Yeah, her parents weren't, but she's legitimate. But I wouldn't be surprised if we find out later that maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was born in Canada. Who knows? There could. I'll say this: Donald Trump didn't say that repeatedly without it having a further meaning somehow. Okay, and he purposely said when Biden was campaigning that he wants Camilla to be the VP. He even called Camilla his number one draft choice, to put it in Paul sports terms there. I like to do that. So Trump has said Camilla is his number one draft choice. He wants that to be the pick. He supports Camilla. And then he says, oh, by the way, my attorneys think that she's ineligible to be president. So you have Biden obviously going to be exited the stage here shortly, one way or another. And then it's Camilla. But now, how Paul and I look at the Q drops is, and Paul does a good job of explaining this from a movie script situation, is when you write a movie, you write the ending first, and you kind of work backwards with how you do it. And you usually, I think, do it in thirds, right? Kind of 3/3 of a movie script is how I understand it. But if you look at the Q drops, the first 100, 150 Q drops are like crazy on fire. And they talk about all the big players and like a big, it seems like the ending. Okay. And that's what I've always said to people that are newer to Q is, before you do anything else, just go read them yourself. Go read the first 100, 150 Qs, block out everything else. Just read what they say. They're not terribly, into codes and stuff. It's pretty straightforward. It talks about different military operations and who the players are, things of that nature. So interestingly enough, the very first Qs are talking about HRC, Hillary Clinton. Okay. And they are talking about her on a book tour, which she happens to be starting on what day? The 17th in September. And it talks about her and Huma Abedin, who just had this engagement news with George Soros' son. So everything in those first, and it talks about, military operations in the Pacific and all these things that are going to likely happen in those first 150 Qs. So Paul and I are on the same page that we probably see HRC and Trump as the final standing here. We'll see how it plays out. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes a different route, but because of the way the Qs are structured, and Hillary has been pretty honest about saying, yeah, a lot of people ask me to run, and she kind of gives a wink and a nod, like she's said this for a lot of years. Yeah, I get asked to run a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised. And she's come out and fully endorsed Kamala, so she probably has the same information. That maybe something will happen where she's unable to have that status. We'll have to see, but that's kind of what I see on the next 4 or 5 months.
No, absolutely. And real quick before you guys continue on, I saw a comment in the chat, and I started came from GM5904. What time on Sunday? And so that reminds me, is you guys have 2 shows already. What days of the week again, and what times for people that want to catch that? And then before you answer, I just want to let the audience know, I see all your guys' Rumble rants. I have them saved all on the side of the screen. So at the end of the show, we'll go through the Rumble rants. So if you have a question for these gentlemen, we'll address it. So don't think I'm ignoring them. I'm just saving that for the end. But what days and what times for people that want to watch your guys' podcast?
Tuesday nights, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time on Badlands Media. Friday nights at 9 p.m. And it looks like Sunday nights are going to be at 7:30. That's not confirmed yet, but it looks like Sunday night show are going to be from 7:30 to 9, leading right into Defected over on Badlands. So that's going to be an awesome 1-2 punch. Eye the storm right into Defected over there.
And the Sunday will probably start 8:25, August 25th.
I feel like there's a meaning to 8:25.
Not that
we just want to get past GART. Because people will be all out there at GART, so we wanted to wait until after GART.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of busyness before then, man. So we figured we'd wait till GART was out of the way and then get the 3rd episode going. It's Joe is nailing it. It's only going to get crazier, and there's so much weird stuff going on. To folks who've been following Q almost the whole time, it's not that weird. It's kind of like we're over here kind of a little bit bursting because we're seeing a lot of stuff happening that we've been, quite frankly, waiting on 7 years to see line up. And it's not really related, but I kind of want to spin off into Sheila Jackson Lee for a second to give your folks an example of how some of this stuff might work and how that might not be exactly what it appears to be on the face, right? To backtrack a little bit, I'm not going to show the Q proof because it's about a half hour long, but arguably the biggest Q proof to date is the Dog Day Afternoon Q proof. And to sum that up, Q essentially told us a month ahead of time when John McCain was going to die, down to the second, down to the literal second, dude was going to die. And then, of course, we see his funeral with the wrinkled, the shit flag on his coffin. Earlier in the drops, Q said we're not going to say his name. He's no name because he's a traitor, so we don't say his name. So you can glean from that, dude probably didn't die from cancer. Dude was probably taken care of because he was a traitor. Not so certain that Sheila Jackson Lee died of cancer either, man. Let's have a quick look at this this clip from Kimberly Cheadle today when she was getting her ass absolutely toasted on the Hill, which is one of my favorite things I've seen all year. But take a look at this. It's interesting what she says about Sheila Jackson Lee in regards to the Secret Service.
I would be remiss if I did not also extend my condolences on the passing of your colleague, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Ms. Jackson Lee was always engaged in the oversight of the Secret Service, and her passing is a great loss to this body.
Whoops.
Wait, so she was engaged in the oversight of the Secret Service? That's interesting. How many days after that assassination attempt did she die, Joe? It was like 3 or 4? Kind of crazy, because Q mentioned her. And Anon posted a picture of her. And was
No kidding.
And
I didn't know. I didn't see this one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Anon posted a picture of her and said, have a peek at her ring. Q replies and says, part of the club. And this further highlights part of the club she's in. You see the ring, right? So put 2 and 2 together. I'm not saying what did or didn't happen to her, but it's pretty damn interesting that a couple days after Trump's assassination attempt, the woman who had a lot to do with the oversight of the United States Secret Service that was cued as part of the club is no longer here. Take from that what you will. I'm not telling you what to believe one way or the other, but that's pretty interesting.
It's pretty damn interesting. I'd never seen that one, man. That one's damn. That's a powerful one. It's like,
Um,
oh, you took a hit at the man. Well, here you have now expired.
well,
That's the way
it's
I interpret that one.
and then you got to think toward the end of the RNC with Nessun Dorma and the Sum of All Fears song playing, right? That song plays at the end of that movie when all the deep state dudes who try to start World War III are literally getting taken out by black ops. It's pretty cut and dry. Um,
And and
you know,
and how significant is it, you guys, from your understanding and your research, when it comes to Trump and music?
pretty significant as far as I understand it. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think anything he's putting out, whether it's whether he's writing a post, whether he's speaking at a rally, whether it's music before, during, and after, the music that Scavino puts in his videos, they all tend to have a message.
Absolutely. And that's why I bring it up, because I want people to understand that, everything has meaning, and multiple meanings sometimes. And I know you guys have tapped into that. But no, I'll give it back to you guys.
One thing I was going to show real quick, man. You were talking about the song and Trump's choosing to play that song to end the RNC. It's not the first time he's played it either. He's played it quite a few other times, but you can pull the Q drops up and see 6 different times in the drops the Sum of All Fears was mentioned. So to me, Trump choosing to use a song that's at the end of the Sum of All Fears, it just bangs right off the drops, man. And of course, these last two, it's directly relating to Nazis trying to take over the world, Antifa, things of that nature, infiltration, invasion, all of that stuff, man, is in all of these drops. And I'm sorry, man, I can't find that to be a coincidence, especially when early in the drops we're told learn our comms. And if you think for a second that there's not some crazy comms going on amongst those intelligence boys and boys running black ops trying to fix all this stuff, or maybe potentially fighting back against the enemy, man, I kind of have a surprise for you. I'm pretty sure Alpha could confirm at the very least those dudes that run that kind of stuff. It's not willy nilly simple communications to figure out. It's clever. It's high level. You got to put some thought into it. And Q literally told us learn our comms. And to me and Joe, that's one of the ways they communicate. It is not the only way. For instance, Joe Biden announces he's not going to run on National Ice Cream Day. Really? Come on. Ice cream and Alzheimer's, dude, and he announces it 107 days before the election, which could be considered a 17, which is Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet. I mean, it's all right in our faces. When Q says we're watching a movie, I believe that. To what extent I believe everything is completely faked, I don't know, man. I don't think everything that we see is fake, but I certainly don't believe everything we see is real, man. I believe there are people we're seeing who have probably already been dealt with and are doing what they are told to do. I think there's probably people that have been taken care of behind the scenes that we're unaware of. I think when you're talking about military intelligence operation of this scale to undo, excuse my language, to unfuck everything that's happened over the past almost 200 years, dude, you can't do that in 4 to 5 years. It's going to take a long time to undo all of that. And that's why me and Joe believe this whole plan, this whole white hat thing, it didn't just start with Trump, man. This goes back decades. We're talking back to JFK, back in that era is where I at least think white hats kind of went hot with a plan or went a different direction with what they were trying to do. Perhaps the good guys really thought that having a good president in office would be enough to bring down the deep state. And they quickly found out that was not enough to take down the deep state because the president doesn't have the military backing him. It's a moot point. And so I think, go ahead.
And that's an important point too, Paul, because it's understanding that the same way good guys have contingencies, the bad guys have contingencies. The same way the good guys will make sure to have sleepers, the bad guys are going to make sure they have sleepers. And since both opposing forces know this, their operations are going to reflect that. It's a very fluid operation, and it's a very fluid timeline, because I really do truly do believe it's the most intricate operations of all mankind. Which brings me to one more point, and I'll give it right back to you guys, I swear. If you were to look at this through the lens of a normie, right? And we're like, no, Trump doesn't know about this. And let's just stipulate for a second that Trump did know about it and he wasn't involved in the initial beginning of it. at some point, it got brought to his attention, even if it was the point where they asked him on national television. He was made aware of it, even if that was the first time, which we know it wasn't. But even if it was, he became aware. You don't think he is going to have one of his intelligence people, an intelligence unit, that are going to dissect it and pull it all apart and know everything about it? Absolutely. And you don't think that they're going to come back with saying, hey, boss, when you do this on the screen, like everybody's grabbing it. So you shouldn't do that no more because they see it. And hey, boss, when you say this, and hey, boss, of course they would tell him. But we've seen that Trump didn't stop doing all those things. He actually amplified all the symbolism that he's been doing over time. So how can you see that and think for 1 second that the man doesn't know what the hell's going on? It's impossible. It's impossible. I think he just operates in this world of, plausible deniability.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely, he does. Joe, what would you like to say to that one, man?
Well, I was going to pull up rock solid proof that he knew before. All right.
See, I love this. I love that, when we say something and one of you guys is like, oh, I got this. Let me go bring this up, because I think it's important. I think it's important when people get to see it with their eyes or hear it with their ears and be like, well, I can't contest that. I can't argue it. I think it's extremely important.
I got that.
So I dropped in the chat, and there's probably a commercial to spring off of that. So I don't know if you can upload it, but I'll start to talk to it a little bit before you can take a look at it. So, like I explained earlier, the Q operation started publicly on October 28th, 2017. So, like, a lot of people will just say, oh, Trump only truths out you guys because he wants your votes. He doesn't know anything about the Q operation. Okay. So this totally debunks that, because there's a few different things. Q talks about the storm, the calm before the storm. And that's why our show is Eye of the Storm, by the way. But he talks about all these different generals that asked Donald Trump to run. But just like you did, that hand motion that Trump does to let us know about a Q, and he does it all. He still does it to this day. This is like 2 or 3 weeks before the Q drop started, and he says these famous words: "You'll find out about about a storm." What he says, you know what you're looking at here? You're looking at the calm before the storm. And the reporters are like, what storm? And then he's like, you'll find out. But if you watch carefully and the camera moves quick, he's actually doing a freaking Q gesture as he's giving you this tip. And this was, I believe, like October 5th or 6th. So a couple weeks, two or 3 weeks before the drop started coming. So you can play it if you can.
Do you guys know what this represents?
Tell us, sir.
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm
We have the world's great military people in this room, I will tell you that. And we're going to have a great evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Did you notice, Alpha, that standing right next to him was one Chris Miller, and Admiral Rogers was over there? Just the brass of the brass. Chris Miller, if you pay attention to Devolution, he's kind of a big deal. Admiral Rogers is huge to the Q operation. Me and Joe both believe he may very well be a part of Q team. He's the one that tipped Trump off to the fact that he was being spied on when they had the meeting at Trump Tower. And wouldn't you know it, Admiral Rogers was the 17th director of the NSA. So little tidbits like that all over, man. And there's another one we can show as well. That is equally as powerful as what Joe just showed, with Trump saying, what storm, Mr. President? Well, you'll find out. And you guys remember back on his inauguration day, there was a point during his inauguration where the entire military walked up behind him. And I've watched a lot of inaugurations in my life. I've never seen that happen. Let's have a quick look at that, and then we'll talk to that for a second, man.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another. but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed.
Man, I love listening to that man talk.
Yeah, man. And so the military showing up right behind him. The part of the speech he was on as well. It's the messages were being sent, like we just said, learn our comms. From the get-go, Trump was telling you the military has my back. And this is different. When he said this is a radically different administration than you've ever seen, he was not lying.
Paul, compare and contrast that to the Biden inauguration.
Oh, yeah, good call, man. Let me go grab this other video real quick. And Alpha, you can certainly speak to this one when I get it pulled up, man. But it's, we talk about military precision all the time, right, Alpha? Like it's not just a cliche saying. I mean, for all the tomfoolery you guys do at the barracks and the fun you have with each other and all the hijinks, when it's time to get down to business, you guys know how, right? You know how to get down to business, right? And my point is, it was apparent from the get-go that something was off with all of this, right? And the couple things I'm going to bring up here, and I'm actually interested to show these to you, Alpha, and get your take on them as somebody who served our country and was in the military. Really interested to hear your view on these because I have my takes on it. I'm loading up one picture and one video real quick, so bear with me while those load up. So the picture I'm going to pull up, man, this was Inauguration Day. Joe Biden compared to Donald Trump, right? And you notice for Donald Trump, the general in the middle, his ribbon stack is on full display. His hat's on full display. He's proud to be there. He's showing his medal, right? The guy on the bottom, all that shit's covered up, right?
It is.
And I've had people say to me, oh, well, it was January in D.C. It was cold.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was January in D.C. when Trump was getting inaugurated, too. That dude wasn't wearing an overcoat covering his ribbon stack. The guy on the bottom was covering his ribbon stack because he didn't recognize that dude in the middle as the president.
Our guys will stand guard in a freaking hurricane.
Right.
Like,
and the thing that really got me on this was going to Arlington last month and watching the changing of the guard. And you're like, these dudes are so ridiculously meticulous and precise that there's no way our military would forget what 21 gun salute to play for an incoming president, correct?
Impossible.
Impossible? All right, have a look at this.
Cannons firing at 9-second intervals.
You can see the absolute precision. What people don't realize what's going on there is there's a cadence,
right?
That each team's going by,
like a drummer. They're counting in their head the whole time, and they've got. It was when I was watching the changing of the guard and counting these guys' steps. It's dead on balls every time. 21 steps everywhere, and when they'd start walking together without even looking at each other or signaling when the other is supposed to start walking, it's because they're listening to the clicks and counting the entire. It is precise as it gets, man. But they forgot what gun salute to give an incoming president. I'm sure
you can't forget because it's second nature, that cadence. You
Right.
have to purposely do that. That's not an accident, man.
So one could say you'd have to be ordered to do that then.
100%.
And what day of the month did Biden drop out of the race?
It would have been the 21st. 2021 being the biggest number in regards to military pomp and circumstance. If I'm sure plenty of folks watching your show are aware of that, man. Another one we can show. I'm pretty sure that plane Joe Biden got on top wasn't Air Force One. I mean, is this normal for an incoming president? Just ask yourself that. It's not. It's not at all. Trump was taking the one on the bottom down to Mar-a-Lago after Biden had been sworn in. That's not normal. So, and me and Joe don't pretend to know what is going on, only that it is clearly obvious that something is going on, and the cue drops point you toward white hats have a military operation in play. And again, that does not mean the military is going to come in over the top, arrest all the bad guys, and we're good to go tomorrow. It's not how it works. That's not how you restore faith in your justice system. That's not how you restore faith in any of these institutions. I mean, it's almost like having to have your big brother get a fight for you, right? Bully's going to beat your ass the next day anyway because you weren't the one that stood up to him. So if the military comes in over the top and fixes it all, that's neat. But the overall optic is cool. The big brother had to come in and save the FBI and the DOJ and the courts from actually doing their jobs. So I think what we're going to see in the long run that me and Joe have talked about plenty is you're going to start to see, especially when Trump is back in there, you'll start to see proper accountability. No more of this smoke show talking big. We're going to investigate this and nothing comes from it. And as a matter of fact, to talk to that, all these investigations we've seen over the last few years, I'm a believer they're not nothing burgers. They're laying groundwork for what's to come after the fact when accountability can actually happen. Because at this point, the DOJ, Q told us the DOJ, all that had to be turned inside out. And we've seen that. Can you remember ever seeing this much exposure to all of this stuff we fight and deal with? I mean, you have been literally to your eyebrows in Gladio with Roxanne, right? Have you ever seen these people throughout that course of your research on that this exposed to where they can be defeated?
I have it, man. And, in my career, there's been certain times, we hate to say it because, your brother's in blue, your brother's in blue. But there have been times where I have ran operations where the ops plans were known to me and they were known to my chief in their completeness. And they were stored in an area that only I had access to or he had access to. That's it. And it's because, operational security. And you're talking, an agency that is, one hair in comparison to the size of the freaking government. And I know how hard it is to maintain operational security, even in something that small. So for something like this, I mean, it's wild, man. I mean, to go back to, what Joe had said earlier in the show about the speed that this is all happening. I mean, can you think of a time in history, in our country's history, where this much stuff has been happening this fast? Like, I don't know
No.
if it's
Maybe in the 60s, which can kind of bring us back around. I noticed a few minutes ago you had shared a comment from somebody in the chat talking about Kim Clement, and I feel like that's super relevant. Kim Clement called an awful lot of stuff that appears to be going on right now, and I'm Christian, so I'm super hesitant to call anybody a legitimate prophet, right? But this guy's hit on so much stuff. It's getting to a point where it's kind of like, man, you've got to kind of start putting a little weight to what this dude was saying. And he had one prophecy where he was, talking about seeing a terrorist attack take place at a Hyatt Regency in Chicago. And it's like, the DNC is in Chicago, and a lot of the activities, not the convention itself, but a lot of the convention adjacent activities are taking place at the Hyatt Regency in Chicago. And he talked about a time of two presidents. He talked about a time of the United States being cleaned out greatly, and that there would be this one man with whom an assassination attempt would be made, but it would be foiled, and he would basically rise from the ashes. And it's super, it's crazy, man. And this is this graphics is an excerpt from one of his prophecies, and he says this was from July 31st, 2004. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord says there shall be one assassination attempt that will endeavor to destroy the plans that I have for this nation. Tonight there are major forces of darkness that have endeavored to bring to nothing this nation, but I will supply a very special weapon to this nation which shall have the ability to see activities of the enemies in a very peculiar manner. This night is a Saturday night. I require that my people stand in agreement with the prophet as he prophesies resurrection to America." Hey guys, what night was the assassination attempt?
Saturday night, bro.
I personally believe the weapon he's referring to is Looking Glass, or Project Looking Glass, which, if you're unfamiliar, short version is it's a tool that allows you to see into the future, but not by detail, by situations, by outcomes, scenarios, things of that nature. And I certainly believe something like that has been at play with these Q drops. And there's really no end. I mean, there's probably thousands of connections you could make to the board at this point that really can't be explained. And if we had Sean on the show a couple times, Patriot in Progress, and he was literally a rocket engineer. And so he, just for the shits and giggles, did the math of it. Literally, with all the Q drops present, how many coincidences would it take between just Q and President Trump, not Q and Scavino or Q and Flynn or anybody else, but just Q and President Trump? How many of those zero delta coincidences would it take before it goes beyond being a coincidence? And it was something like 6 or 7, right? Over 4,900 plus drops. And I think it's 4,966, I think. It would take more than 6 coincidences between the Q drops and President Trump for it to not be a coincidence, right? It's in the dozens. It's like 50 or 60 times at least that Trump and Q have hit zero deltas and been talking about the same thing at the same time. It's not a coincidence, man. And I think Joe bringing up
real quick,
go ahead,
Paul,
buddy.
explain to everybody what a delta is so they know what you're referencing.
So, you know what, Joe, do you want to take this one, man? You might be able to give a better, maybe somewhat of a better synopsis of it than me.
So what the main thing there was, like, I can't tell you when Donald Trump is going to send a truth out, right? You can't either, right? Q would post, and within a minute, Trump would send out a message on Twitter, and some of the key phrases that Q put in his post ended up in Trump's Twitter as well. So we considered under a minute to be like a zero delta, because by the time you write something and hit send for somebody else to, like, some people try to argue, oh, well, maybe they have some sort of catching program and all this BS. And Q and Trump got it down to like 0 seconds, because they kept saying, you got to do it quicker for people to believe it. So we got it down to like 3 seconds or something. But that's pretty much what we're talking about there. And then people talk about deltas as things that are written in the Q drops. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of the things are coming up from 2018 this year. So, like, I'll give you the example. So Paul and I on Eye of the Storm literally talked about Joe Biden getting COVID. And we talked about it for months, and then it happened on July 17th. So not only did it happen on July 17th, but if you go back to the July 17th Qs of 2020, guess what they're talking about? They're talking about COVID, and not just like, oh, well, they were just talking about a COVID report. They're specifically talking about like COVID in presidential debates and how somebody might use them to scurry around a debate. It was ridiculous. So it was 5 drops that hit that day. So that was what we call a 3-year delta. Q wrote it July 17, 2020, and then Biden, July 17th, 2024, everything that happened lined up exactly with those particular Q posts. Not a coincidence.
No, not at all.
It's every time they happen to this day, there's still been some recently that are just, my God, I just don't understand how so many years out ahead of time something is just a coincidence anymore. I mean, it's okay to ask questions and be skeptical. Obviously, we want that, but at some point, you've got to say, dude, that's not just happenstance. That's not just happening, man. I'm looking for one of those right here. It is. I'm going to pull this one up real quick, and look at the when I pull this up, it's the drop to the right. that I'm referencing here, and Joe can add on to this. But as for a good example of a delta, the day that Hunter Biden's trial began was June 3rd. It was a gun trial. If you look at that graphic, it's a gun upside down, and Q says boom, 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 boom. The same day Hunter's trial began. I find that hard to believe that's a coincidence. And then of course, there's even Trump's speech at the RNC. He mentioned boom 3 times that lined right up to another Q drop. It's not a coincidence, man. It's not happenstance. It's not just happening randomly. It's a military operation, and they give us clues and nuggets along the way to make us, aware that it's on track, that it's accomplishing what it is supposed to accomplish.
Let me ask you guys this. So, and I think I know the answer, but I want you guys to give me your thoughts on it. Why would the black hats, now that Trump is out of office, use air quotes on that, why wouldn't they take the Q boards down? Why if our FBI, because our FBI lists Q as, this detriment to society. I know because it's in my paperwork that they put it in. So obviously the FBI says that Q and anons, and they mistakenly always say QAnons, if they see it as such a dangerous thing for the government, why haven't they taken it down?
You want to take this one, Joe, or you want me to swing the bat first?
You can give your take, Paul.
Because they can't. Because they're not in control of it. When you eliminate most possibilities, whatever's left over, no matter how impossible is or how improbable, is probably the truth. And so when you know that the deep state is this evil, dark entity that will stop at nothing to keep the truth from getting out, wouldn't it stand reason if they were still in control of such things, they could just get rid of the Q boards on 8Q and they could just take down QAG or Q posts? They can't. Or Q alerts, rather. They can't. I firmly believe they can't.
And I agree with you, because we've seen everything else they take down, and they take it down fast. Like, they don't hesitate. Whether it's them using their influence, because we know they control big tech, but they get these things down right away. And I've always seen that, obviously they don't have that much power because they haven't been able to take this down. So here, shock, make our jaws drop, you guys. What did you guys end up uncovering with regards to Q and the assassination on Trump? Did you guys see any correlations, any deltas, anything like that? Oh man, I see you both smiling. I feel like you guys are about to punch me in the balls.
I'll go ahead and lead them off with a good one, Joe. What do you think, man? I want to see the reaction to this one. So what did Trump say after he got shot and stood up on stage?
Get out of here. Bro.
Okay, but no, that's not all of it, man. That's not all of it. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Oh shit, bro. That's what he did. That's what he did.
Roll it back down, Paul, too, a little bit. What was he standing on? A carpet.
What else did the shooter have in a van a couple blocks away? A bomb.
And fight.
So now if you apply Looking Glass, okay, and remember what I said about it.
Bro, I got goosebumps.
That it doesn't give you detail. It can't tell you when and where, but it can tell you how something will come out, right? It's, to me, feasible to believe White Hats knew an assassination attempt would happen, and they knew Donald Trump would live. Beyond that, they didn't know when, where, how, who. But you can lean into it. If you know it's coming and your dude's going to live because you've got access to some top secret technology nobody knows about, then you can leave markers. These dudes are that good and that smart to say, look, dude, this is going to happen and you're going to live. We don't know when or how, but when it does, here's what you do after the fact. Military operations can do that kind of shit, man. We know how devious the black ops have been throughout the years. So again, think mirror. I just say I don't dismiss anything, man. I ultimately don't know what happened here. I ultimately still stick by the side God intervened to some degree, but I just have a belief they knew at some point this was going to happen, bro, and they knew that he was going to live. And there are other facets to it that I'm personally not comfortable talking about right now because I don't want to alienate people or push them off or that. But there are certain things that me and Joe are seeing that we just want to let lie for a little bit and let's see how they come out before we start putting opinions on them or before we really start pushing them out there. But I'd be lying if I sat here and told you I haven't seen some things between the board and this attempt that really make me scratch my chin and go, holy crap, like what is, because look look how they're all. What if this leads back to JFK eventually, bro? What if Trump gets up there and one day and says, "Look, I ain't the first dude they tried it to, and they've actually succeeded before. Take a look at these files." You just don't know. And if that's the end result, man, I can't rule out anything. I know Joe's probably itching to say some stuff too, man, and he's got great takes on it as well.
Before you go, Joe, let me tell you why Saturday the 13th, when they tried to kill, the boss, why my brain struggles here. Because one, I understand it from the operational standpoint, I understand it from the shooting standpoint, I understand the ballistics, like I get all that stuff, right? I know, how sinister these people are, but I also understand false flags. I understand also, patriots and control. Like I get all that. But man, I have seen unfortunately, I should start by saying that. Unfortunately, I've seen countless videos and surveillance videos of people when they're either shot and killed, or shots are at them, or shots hit somebody next to them. So I've gotten to see, unfortunately, many examples of real reactions to people being shot at.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see Trump's reaction, that shit ain't acting, man. Like that. Like I'm willing to consider that the entire event itself could have been orchestrated, whether good guys or bad guys. But the one thing that I know is not orchestrated was Trump's reaction, because it was exactly the reaction I've seen people show when they were really shot at. And so then that brings it to the point was, see, the only one, if it was, if it was a white hat operation, was he aware of it? Because I don't care how good your acting is, it's not that good, and his reaction was real. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it possible, or do you guys have an understanding that there is biblical intervention when it comes to Q?
I think so, but I'll let Joe go first, man, because he's
and one more thing, because I just learned in the last couple months, we within the Catholicism and the Bibles we have, there's a lot of Bibles that have been kept from us. And so somebody sent me a message and they're like, well, that there was a book in the Bible known as the Book of Q. And I'm gonna be honest, my initial reaction was, fucking A, man, now you guys are taking it too far. So I go to research it because I'm gonna debunk it. I'm like, hey, listen, man, you're taking it too far.
I tried to debunk this one too.
In my pursuit to debunk it, dude, my jaw was like, what? This is real. Like, holy smokes, what? And so I know that there's a post, and forgive me for saying it wrong, but that refers to it's going to be biblical. So I'll give it to you, Joe. Well, what's going on here, man, when it comes to biblical or divine intervention on the board?
Yeah, it's together. So the Q drop said that they pray like every day in the Oval Office, and they had specific prayers. And Trump was known to bring in different people to pray with him all the time. And Q says throughout the post, prayer works, do it, So Paul and I are firmly in belief, and that's why we got some of this gear behind me here, that those aren't separate things, that the Q drops are acting with God's hand in nature. So we don't kind of dismiss that whatsoever. That's the foundation of our show. If you watch our show enough, it's God, it's mega, it's personal responsibility, it's the Constitution. Those things are all in alignment, and Q as well.
Oh, I agree, and I'll let you guys go. It looks like Paul's itching to grab the knowledge right here.
I totally agree with him, man. And there's quite a few drops where Q says it's going to be biblical or simply just biblical. There's also a drop where Q mentions you'll never believe who's been talking to you here. I'm not saying that's God by any means, but I am saying that God can choose to communicate through whoever he wants to. It doesn't matter that computers didn't exist in the time of Jesus Christ. God can work through us and talk through whoever he wants to. So I personally believe there's a lot of divine inspiration and intervention within what we're seeing here. To me, as well laid out as the plan is, and as well intentioned as a lot of men and I emphasize that for a reason, are in putting this plan together and carrying it out. They're all still but men, and men are fallible and make mistakes. To me, the only thing that could really guide everything we've seen, and you know what? Let's just go back to 2020. Go back to March of 2020 when COVID was beginning. Look at all the exposure just from that point to this point in July of 2024. Would you have ever believed that was going to happen 10, 15 years ago? And so to me, I'm big into predictive programming. I've studied the occult quite often. I've studied a lot of that stuff way, 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 way deeper than a lot of surface level folks may do. They may want to take a look at a couple headlines or whatever. No, I've spent some time studying that shit. And these people hide behind the shadows. They hide in the darkness. That's how they've operated for thousands of years. They work behind the curtain and they boil the frog before the frog realizes he's boiling. That's not what's happening here. And so I don't believe that man himself could pull the veil off of this evil that's been thrust upon the world for 1,000 years now. That's got to be divinely driven. That's got to be God driving this great awakening and saying, look, this has gone too far. This is, and I truly, I'm not saying it, man. I truly believe we've reached a critical mass. We've reached a point where the genie's not going back in the bottle, bro. It's going to come to a head one way or another.
Listen, I'm slowly, getting my audience to, I'm bringing on some woo-woo content, which is, I'm not calling Q woo on this end. There's some other content that I'm bringing on, because the one thing that I do share with my audience all the time, so both you guys understand, is if we know that we've been lied to from the moment we're born, through cartoons, through our education, literally through everything, then we know that they've literally mastered the art of propaganda against us, when people, for the last, my entire lifetime, every time people have come forward to try to tell the truth, what do we call them? Liars or conspiracy theorists or crazy or all three? Like, that's how much they've controlled that propaganda, that we do the work that they don't even have to anymore. Like, we shut people down. And so I try to get my audience to be like, hey, listen, let's just crack the egg here and let's listen, see if it resonates or if it doesn't. But what I'll also say is there's power in manifestation. Like, there truly is. Even whether you're looking at through healing or whatever the case is, when you get a global ascension, or you get a large amount of the population that's like, oh, something just happened, right? Let's go to the boards and research it. Let's type in July 13th. And you get so many people doing it, and that brain activity and that energy and these souls, there's something to be said there, man.
Yeah.
And I just,
and look, Eric Q drops, one of the very last drops he made in 2020 was, it had to be this way. And sometimes you got to walk through the darkness before you get to the light. And look, the fact is, dude, we're at war. It's a war. You can't say it's not. Unfortunately, innocent people and collateral damage happens during war. It's a sad fact, but it's a fact. My heart breaks for every innocent person that's lost their livelihood, their family, their life, their career. My heart breaks for these people, but we are at war. And I don't know a single person in this war, myself, you, Alpha, Joe, probably all, more than likely, all your listeners out there right now, all your viewers, we've all went through something pretty catastrophic in our personal lives over the last 8 years. I don't know a person that hasn't been touched by it. And to me, that's because we're ultimately at a spiritual war. And so Satan sees what's coming, and he's trying to drag us all down as hard as he can. And so me and Joe are very serious on the show about the armor of God, about praying, about keeping that connection to God. And look, I'm Christian, but me and Joe never deride people for not being Christian over on Eye of the Storm. Not everybody on this planet's going to be a Christian, man. And the message that was preached over 100 times on the boards in the drops, the message at Trump is probably equaled as many times throughout his presidency and ever since he left office, has been unity. And a lot of people got upset at the RNC because Harmeet Dillon gave a Sikh prayer. A lot of people got upset at the Jewish prayer that was given. There were Catholic prayers. There were Christian prayers. I'm sitting over here going, if I'm the adversary, if I'm Lucifer, if I'm Baphomet sitting on that throne, and I'm seeing all these different religious beliefs able to set their differences aside because they're all sick and tired of dealing with darkness and evil, I'm pretty scared. And that was the point of the RNC last week. And that sets up what I'm going to show next. And this one was pretty smack on too, man. Alpha, I don't know if you're aware of this drop or not. It's drop number 109. And Q shares a picture of a flaming sword with a strong hand holding it, obviously. Or I'm sorry, this is an Anon that shared this. And the Anon says, Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast down to hell Satan and all of his evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Q replies and says, Amen, brother. Alpha, did you watch night 4 of the RNC by chance?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember how it began?
No, I do not. Remind me.
I know you want a refresher, don't you?
I do.
All right, let's have a look real quick, man. And keep in mind, the overarching theme of this whole movement, a lot of people got back into this stuff and reignited their fire. Like I said, with Pizzagate, it's about saving children. It's about keeping these people's evil hands off these kids, right? So keep that in mind and keep that drop I just read to you in mind when you watch the opening prayer from night 1 of the RNC.
Good evening. If you bungle raising your children, nothing much matters. Jackie Kennedy's words speak louder today than when she said them over 60 years ago. And this is why we gather on this historic occasion, isn't it? We as parents and grandparents would move heaven and earth to protect our children and the opportunities that a strong, free America offers them. Raising our children is the single most important job we have, which is why we dedicate endless hours organizing, volunteering, and advocating on behalf of President Trump. We owe it to our children to give them the kind of America we all remember growing up in, the proud, patriotic, and safe America that President Trump wants for all of us. Thank you. At home, every night, when we finish our prayers with the prayer to Saint Michael. We pray for all the children, our grassroots warriors, our country, and President Trump and his family. Tonight, I would like to add my boys, JJ, Jack, and George, and God bless you, Kevin. And President Trump, Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruins of souls. Amen, and God bless President Trump.
So night 4 of the RNC begins with that. Ends with the song from Sum of All Fears. Then Joe Biden goes off radar and Sheila Lee Jackson exits stage left. I'm sure it's all a coincidence. I like that.
I figured it caught my eye, so I was like, let me throw it on the screen for these guys to see.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, man. And I'm not suggesting the lady that gave the prayer is on Q team, but I'm suggesting that there was probably some communication guidelines given from white hats to folks speaking at the RNC. There were so many speakers over those 4 nights that said either exactly nothing can stop what is coming or a variation of nothing can stop what is coming. It was absurd.
Not to take us off topic, but just because I want to say it before I forget. Today this morning during the testimony of Cheadle, did you guys catch when she brought up continuity of government?
Yep.
Because that made my ears just go, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, she got absolutely torched. It was Byron Donalds went in her ass to a degree that just made my day before it even really got going.
I watched Trump tonight on Jesse Waters, and they asked Donald Trump, "You met with the Secret Service director?" And he said, "Yeah, she was very nice." And he said it twice. Yeah, she was very nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
You would think you would have a different attitude if you came within a blade of hair of getting your head taken off.
Right. Right. It's
I did want to ask Alpha a question. Okay. If you hit me with a round from an AR-15 from 130 yards, like right in here, what would my ear look like?
It depends. assuming it's just a normal 223 on or 556, whatever they want to do it, nothing else behind it, because even a tracer would be a little bit different. If it hits just flesh, that really soft part, then it can cut it, and the ear does bleed a lot. When Trump brought up the capillaries, even the face, your face is like that as well. But if that bullet hits cartilage, with that thicker part, it can actually really destroy the ear pretty bad. Like it could look pretty nasty. So it's just going to depend if it hit the soft flesh or it hit the cartilage. If it hit the soft flesh, it could actually be a very small wound. But if it hits cartilage, it can be pretty devastating to the ear.
Right. Cool.
Casting.
I'm waiting. Like, why am I being asked? Like, I'm curious. I want to know what.
Just seems to be a lot of noise going on around his ear, man. It just seems to be a lot of dog whistling at the moment. We were both just kind of curious from your perspective what you could, but it seems it could go either way. Like it could really be almost like his ear was pierced or almost like his ear was blown off, depending on where it hit, how it hit, and the kind of round and the grain load into the round and all of these different things play a role, man. So I was just kind of curious myself. I mean, I shoot, but I've only shot paper with my AR, so.
Yeah, bullets and flesh, man. It's pretty interesting. A grazing wound. Sometimes you won't even be able to tell that a bullet did it. Or you can have a bullet that makes a lot of contact. And that's why I said it really does depend. Because when a bullet comes out, it's not a perfect point, but I mean it's near perfect, and it maintains that until it has a point of impact. Whether that's muscle, flesh, cartilage, so if it's a grazing wound, it's just literally, it can even just be a burn on his ear that could just tear the flesh, so it depends, man. But here's the other thing too, man. It's a pretty decent sized bandage, that they're putting on his ear. So it kind of does make me say, because, and like I said, obviously he has the best of the best doctors, but I'll say this. If it was a grazing wound, they could just do an ear wrap, with I'm trying to think of there's these bandages that have little strings in them, it could be something as simple as that, and that's what I would expect to see if it was just a grazing wound, with the way he has his ear bandage, it makes me feel like his ear probably got split, like there's a chunk of it that's probably messed up, and they probably did stitches, and they have it there to prevent. Go ahead.
I kind of want to see him walking around with his ear all fucking half hanging off. Like, let's go full blown Evander Holyfield here, bro. Like, why not?
Steri strip. Thank you, RL Skeeter, saving me in the laugh in the live chat. Yes, the Steri strip is what I was trying to describe there. But
so he had the big pad on it for the RNC, and a week later from when he got hit, he like on Tonight with Jesse and stuff, it's pretty much just like a Band-Aid. And then yesterday it came out that he didn't require any sutures at all.
Huh. Oh, why the heck with a big bandage?
Probably just to throw it in their face. I mean, one thing I saw that made me giggle the other day was a friend of mine on Facebook had posted a meme, and it said, Trump looks ridiculous with that bandage. And then it showed a picture of Rachel Levine with that other thing that leaked the stuff, the one with the bald head, the transgender one. I can't even remember that thing's name. But it was like, yeah,
Sam?
Trump looks ridiculous with that bandage. Okay, sure. You guys don't look ridiculous at all chopping your dicks off because you think you're a woman. It's fine.
Oh.
It's cool.
Or wearing that face diaper.
Right?
Yeah.
Another one I wanted to throw at you, Alpha, before I almost forgot to bring this one up, man. And I don't know if you saw it. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but I can at least read it to you guys. The drop over on the left, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the very top of it, why are they pushing back the deconvention? You guys remember they pushed back the Zoom call for the convention by a couple days. COVID-19 concern or strategic for last-minute change? Huh, that's dasting. Change of batter coming? Why was she saved from officially announcing? Why was she reversed or reserved for a last-minute change? How do you attempt to sneak one in? How do you attempt to ensure victory? And then, of course, over to the right, I put this side by side with Joe Biden's resignation letter that somehow is missing letterhead and the White House stamp, but whatever, we'll ignore that for now, I guess. But it seems that Q called another one. Change of batter. Joe Biden's gone. Kamala's in there now. Me and Joe both kind of think it's going to end up being HRC. If for no other reason, then she's the perfect villain to end this movie. She's the Joker. She's Two-Face. She's the enemy for Trump to take down once and for all. And I truly believe that's where we're heading, man. It's just another small example of some of the stuff Q calls ahead of time. A change of batter. Why was she reserved? Yeah, I'm totally sure that was a kid in somebody's basement just taking wild guesses.
Yeah, that's the one I'm pretty confident to rule out. If that was the case.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother.
Oh no, I was done. I was just agreeing with you.
So let me ask you guys this. And I saw someone put in the chat earlier. I keep hearing people talking about during Trump's assassination attempt that there's something that has to do with his shoe and the boards. What's that about?
You could take that one, Joe.
Let me see. I don't know if we had specifically a shoe reference. But I'll say this: 2 days before the attempt on July 11th, Trump posted a picture of his new shoe line, and he said, "Coming soon." And then 2 days later, you put all those things together. So you can't give just like one little sliver of information. Oh, big deal. He put a picture of his shoes up. But you stack what Paul showed. So you literally have the cue that says fight, fight, fight on carpet, doing the fist pump. All those things are in order. And that Trump said 2 days earlier, shoes coming soon. And that's what he says 3 times on that situation, where you would think you'd be trying to get the hell out of there. Just because one shooter's down, you don't know if there's a second shooter or what. You don't think you're going to stop and 3 times ask for me to get my shoes so I can pose and stand up above everybody and be in more danger. Just didn't make sense.
You guys just made me think of something. I'm going to have to go back and watch. So are you guys familiar? You guys know who John Rodembo is?
I can't say I am.
Yeah. Navy veteran guy, was intel in the Navy, but he has a gift from our creator. He does dream decoding, but not like, where you turn to a book and, well, clouds mean this and cars mean this. No, it's very individualized. And he really used the spirit that works through him. Well, I had this dream, and I'll give the real brief one because it was so long ago. I don't want to mix up facts, anyways. But in this dream, Trump he's on a stage, like when he gives these speeches, and behind him is the stands, but the stands are empty in the dream. Mm-hmm. And on the stage that he's on, and I might have this vice versa, but on the stage that he's on, the decorative patriotic color ribbon is like brand new looking. And then the patriotic ribbon that's on the stands is very old looking. And like I said, I might have that backwards. It's been a while, but it's there. And then all of a sudden, these people in suits that I'm like, well, it's either FBI or Secret Service or something. They're coming up to the stage. But the whole time that Trump's at the podium in the dream, he's looking at me. Like, I know he's looking at me. And when they come up, they grab him, behind each arm. And he doesn't shock him. He doesn't look like he's surprised. Oh my God, he doesn't look like he's surprised by it. Holy shit. I need to go back and watch this. I'm going to send it to you guys. They grab him by the arm and they escort him off what would be the left side of his screen, our right side. Holy shit, I'm going to watch this again. But I remember when I share this, and there was more stuff to it. And like I said, it's been a while. But following that, all the screen in the dream, I just see a bunch of television screens, and it's like all news. It's all news stuff. And in the news stuff, everybody was okay with what happened. Now, I remember at the time that I'm sharing this with John, because of the way they came up and grabbed him on the arms and escorted him, I kind of interpreted as that he was being arrested. That's kind of how I took it. But now as I look back on it, I'm like, holy smokes, was it that? I need to go back and look at the date of when that happened and all that, because I'm very curious because of what we saw here. It's just, sorry, man, I just distracted myself. Like, my brain's going like a million miles an hour.
it sets up another video pretty well because it kind of leans into the divine inspiration and divine intervention angle with all this, and Q calling things ahead of time, certain people being able to kind of see where things are going to go, and I think it's obvious God's hand is involved in this at some point. Man, I got another one that's a minute long. I don't know if you've seen this one yet or not, Alpha, and this kind of goes along with the Kim Clement stuff, right? So let's have a listen to what this dude had to say. He said this back on April 9th. I'm sorry. It was the day after the eclipse in April. This guy said this, and I believe he says he had the vision on the eclipse day. Let's have a look.
All throughout America, and I saw Trump rising up, and then I saw an attempt on his life. This bullet flew by his ear, and it came so close to his head that it busted his eardrum. And I saw he fell to his knees during this time frame, and he started worshiping the Lord. He got radically born again during this time frame. I'm talking, people say he's saved now, but he becomes really on fire for Jesus, for what I saw coming. And then I saw people interceding when I saw him winning the presidency through great. The Lord showed me it would go clear into the summer. Great persecution would come on him through the judges and through the law and all these people trying to sue him and all this stuff. But there would be a stop to it, and things would start to break free come toward the fall. And then I saw him winning the election through the Patriots coming out and voting. And
what are your thoughts on that, Alpha?
That is detailed, man.
Right?
Literally saw the bullet go by his ear.
Yeah, and then what happened 2 days after the attempt? Judge Cannon dropped the case in Florida. Dismissed it rather. And then Thursday when Trump spoke at the RNC, he said, "I have to thank the Lord Almighty." That's Jesus Christ. And Trump through all of his speeches since then has damn sure made sure to thank God above for saving him that day. And it's lining up right with what that dude said, man. So again, you can take from that what you want, but that's either a really, really, really well scripted movie or a little bit of that and a little bit of God having his hand in things too.
One of the things that I did pick up on his speech at the RNC, I've never heard Trump correct the public, ever. I've never heard him give a speech where he corrects the public.
Right.
Even when they've booed him at rallies, when he's talked about certain thing that none of us like, you know what I mean? He's never corrected it. But on that night he did, when he goes, "I'm not supposed to be here." And then the crowd starts chanting, "Yes, you are. Yes, you are." And he lets them. But then afterwards, it was almost like a fatherly way he did it too, is he corrected everybody. He said, "No, I'm not supposed to be here." Like something happened to that man.
Yeah.
Like something.
A lot of people are commenting on that too. A lot of people are commenting when he walked in that first night of the convention, how he looked almost blessed and humbled and kind of like just really grateful. I don't know. It definitely accelerated things, man. Our friend Goes to Base, Patrick Henry, loves to say accelerate, right? Things have most definitely accelerated, man. I don't think there's any arguing that.
Well, let's do this because we got about 16 minutes. So is there anything that you guys want to make sure that the audience hears tonight with regards to proofs, whether it's, around the assassination attempt or things that are maybe relevant to this time? I want to make sure that I open it up for you guys. If there's anything you think they need to hear or a proof or whatever, I want to give you guys a chance to do that. And then after that, we'll get into a couple of these Rumble rants.
Yeah, you can go ahead and go first, Joe.
Actually, let me Grant. Well, I'll just talk to it. Okay. So I put this together like at midnight last night. How I was talking about how the first few drops are talking about Hillary Clinton. Okay. How the board starts is an anon actually posted that Hillary's arrested, and then the very first Q drop is saying, basically she's not arrested, she's detained, and she's not arrested yet. Okay, so that's how the drops start. But very interestingly, how Paul and I agree that these are coming back around, and the end is they gave us the end first. That first post was at 3:33, 3 p.m. 33 minutes. Okay. When Joe Biden dropped out of the race, Hillary endorsed Camilla at 3:33. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And so me and Joe were actually able to add on to that last night too. So, you had the first ever Anon posting asking about Hillary's arrest. And then, so that post, like Joe said, was made at 3:33, and then Hillary endorses Kamala at 3:33. And so yesterday as well, this press release came out from Biden's doctor, Dr. O'Connor. And in it, he says, in this letter from White House physician Kevin O'Connor, he corrects a mistake in a prior letter. He changes the percentage from 33.3 to 12.8. So there's another 33.3 right there that's been changed to a 12.8. Sure enough, so that all of us can see that, right? If you take the date of that first Q drop, which was October 28th, and going by true numerology, remove the zeros, it becomes a 12.8. Seems to me that was a pretty clear message of something here around that 333, around something potentially with that. And I'm just telling you, if Hillary ends up becoming the nominee, we might see some of these things from these drops come true. There was, let me pull this up real quick. I was going to show another one, but I'd rather show this to lean into what Joe was talking about with the Hillary stuff. And there's a popular misconception that Q said, like Joe just explained, that Q said Hillary was arrested. Q never said that. He only said she was detained, right? He actually never said that she was arrested. So what I'm going to show you now, Alpha, and I'm not even going to build her up anything. Let me just show you this, and then I want your honest to God reaction to what you think happened here. This was on September 11th, 2016, and this was about 2 weeks before the Pizzagate files dropped and about a month before Comey reopened the email investigation into Hillary. So take a look. What's that look like to you, brother?
It looks like she didn't want to go in that van, and she didn't have a choice.
Right? Right?
Let me tell you. Let me tell you why I know that. Because I've had people respond that way when I'm trying to put them in the car. You know, when it's that moment that they realize I don't want to get in that van.
As soon as each agent's arm went under her arms, she lost her legs, because that was the moment that shit got real, when she went, oh my God, they're actually doing this. And they passed it off that day as a heat-related episode, which I've had a heat stroke. That's a bullshit excuse. If she was at the point about to lose her legs and pass out from a heat stroke, she wouldn't have been standing there of her own power to begin with at that point, is what I'm saying. It kind of builds, and you start losing your weakness, and then is when you go. She was standing up completely fine until they grabbed her arms, and then she started losing her shit. I believe that was the day she was detained. And we don't know what happened after that. We do know another fact we haven't brought up in this episode is there are currently over 400,000 sealed indictments in this country. The average number throughout the courts for a year is somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000. So from 2017 on, we've got 400,000 sealed indictments in this country. At some point, you got to wondering who they're all for and what it's about.
And I know this goes into John's devolution with regards to PEDS. Do the boards ever mention PEDS? Do you guys know that?
The boards never mention any. The boards focus heavily on executive orders, and following the phrase "follow the pen" points toward the executive orders, as well as Catherine Herridge, as Joe has pointed out so many times before. But no, they don't mention PEDS, they don't mention devolution, and none of the drops mention continuity of government either, which, from an operational security perspective, I find really, really interesting. The drops mention things adjacent to. So the drops spend a lot of time on the Insurrection Act, which would definitely have to be working in concert with devolution and things of that nature for this to happen. So Q almost fills in the blanks of what you'd be looking for in devolution or continuity of government in any of those situations. And so, like I said at the beginning of the episode, all this stuff's converging onto the same highway now, man. And again, I don't think that's an accident either. I think Great Awakening. It's not cliche, man.
And chain of command, chain of commands in the queues, and in the executive order. So there's hints and nods towards it.
Well, I find it very interesting, man. I find it very interesting, and I love looking through the chat and a lot of people that are just like, "You just made me believers in Q." That makes me happy. Makes me happy
Makes me
that
happy
people
too.
are willing to go and research this. I think it's very important. Also, want to give a shout out to X. A huge viewership on X. There's about almost 4,000 people that are watching us on X, formerly Twitter. So, thanks
That's
for
awesome.
joining
Thank
the
you, guys.
crowd. With the family on Rumble. Before we get into these Rumble rants and I give these guys their last word, I want to let you guys know, if you joined a little bit late, down in the description of this show on Rumble and on YouTube, for those that are you watching on the backup YouTube channel, if you go down about halfway in there, you'll find the links to follow Stormy and to follow Absolute. You also find a link below that that says show links, and that's the playlist for Badlands Media, where you can watch all the Eye of the Storm shows, because these guys do it all the time. And tonight, I'm telling you, tonight is just a taste. It is just a taste. All you guys got to do tonight, all we got to do is just, we barely licked the cake. That's all we got to do tonight with regards to the amount of work and research,
We've licked
interpretation.
that shit off the bottom of the candle after you blow the candles out. That's what we've touched upon tonight, man.
I'm telling you, man, and I really want to make sure people go and follow you guys to watch that stuff. So with that, let me get these Rumble rants, and then after that, I'll give you guys the final word. So let me go to the bottom, start from the oldest, S Jones 39. Actually, let me bring it down here a little easier to read. S Jones 39 says, "Eye of the Storm on Alpha Show, epic." I agree with you. $10 Rumble rant, thank you. Breadmaker 62 dropping a $100 Rumble rant. Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you more than you would know. And then I agree with that. We appreciate
Right back at you, man.
100%.
Thank you, man.
$10 Rumble rant coming from Deanne. Great show as always, Alpha. Best guess. It's really easy. It's easy for me when you got guys like this. I mean, come on. I should have had popcorn for this one.
Stop it.
$10 Rumble rant coming from the clever name. Asshole. Very clever.
Nice.
Eye of the Storm Alpha Edition. Love it. I agree. $17 Rumble rant from D-Tech. Also a monthly subscriber. Appreciate that, D-Tech. Act 3 of this movie. Everything will ramp up now. Enjoy the show. Absolutely. And then last one, $5 Rumble rant from Rambo and Friends. What a crew. Sup, my dudes. Absolutely.
What's up, buddy?
And you guys know who Rambo is. Just a phenomenal human being. And real quick, for those that are like the 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. Hence the reference for that, for those of us that are still new and learning the way. So Joe, Paul, final words from you guys, and we'll wrap it up and call it a night.
Joe, give the floor to you first, my man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having us on, Alpha. Enjoyed the time. And our next show is tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. We have like an overflowing show already planned, and there's going to be more news tomorrow. So, if you're newer to Q, jump on in, take a listen to what we have to say. It's going to be wild. And Elon Musk is a key figure that we're seeing. He's really amping up. So, when Paul and I started this 2 years ago almost, people were really like, I can't, deal with Musk. Why are you guys highlighting him? We never said trust Elon Musk. What we said is there was a reason why Trump, put this guy as the highest paid person in his administration and gave him access to these federal things and lands and put, who knows what in the space, the most, forget about what we have from the military standpoint. Whatever we put up in space is very, very important. Okay. So right now the gloves are off, the mask is off. He's literally fully endorsed Donald Trump, and he's giving $45 million a month to Donald Trump. He's changed his logo to activated Musk, and he's just bombing stuff. And like when you were in one of those last rants said, it's just going to evolve from here. That was one of his last posts that I saw tonight. Was he was saying as crazy as the last month has been, it's going to get crazier from here. And he puts up a popcorn emoji, which ties into Q as well. So he's banging off the board, and he's an important player. And Trump shouted him out too, not only for the 45 million, but he talks about him a lot, and those two talk quite often, from what I understand. So take a look for that, and we appreciate all the love tonight, and look forward to next time around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. First off, thanks for having us on tonight, man. It's been a blast. It always is. We should definitely try to make it happen a little more sooner than the previous break between appearances, right? Everything you said about us at the top of the show, man, I'm going to direct right back on you. You're somebody that I as well, and Joe, I know I can speak for him here. We hold you in the highest regard as well, man. And as I always do, I'd like to thank you for your service to this country, man, not just in the military, but all the law enforcement stuff you've been involved in your life, man, always fighting for the small guy and for justice. So hats off to you, man. I tip my cap to you, and we appreciate you, dude, and appreciate everything you do and the fight you've been through and the sacrifice you've made for this movement as well, man. So goes both ways, my brother. It's not just us. We look up to you and your mind and your opinions and thoughts and everything you do as well, dude. So don't forget that. My favorite part of the night was seeing people in your chat get into Q and turn into Q believers, and possibly want to check the show out. Not because it'll get us more viewers, but me and Joe are really more concerned about opening people's eyes to it. And I know for me personally, man, Q, I never went atheist, right? I think all of us have had a point in our lives where we've kind of had it out with God. We've been at odds with God. We've questioned our faith. We went through darkness where we had to find our faith again. I was certainly going through that in the early part of the 2010s, and I was way black-pilled and agnostic at best. I knew there was something up there. Didn't really care to worship it or put any of that into my life or put any effort into it. And it was Q that ultimately started leading me back to that. It's one of the reasons I showed that drop 109 tonight, is that God is a very central message in all of these drops. God wins, and wear your armor of God, and make sure you pray, and make sure you always keep God with you, and you always keep your chin up, and you keep moving forward, and you keep fighting. And it's also important to remember with the keep fighting is that it's okay to take breaks as well from time to time. Shut down for a day or two. Give yourself time to rest and breathe and be. This is a tough war, man. This isn't just a battle; it's a war, and it wears on all of us to a soul level, man. It makes us all tired, and the kind of tired that sleep don't fix, right? And it's kind of relevant because there's a very famous Q drop that says, "Those that know do not sleep," and I think that goes for all of us. We know all this evil in the world. It's hard to see it going on, but to me, that lends more to the divine angle of this because of free will, and God's not going to interfere with free will. Even if evil men want to do evil things, he's not going to interfere with free will, because then we don't truly have free will, and then what's the point of being here? But I do believe, as you touched upon earlier, Alpha, that when the critical mass is reached and you start seeing the mass majority of people on the planet ascend to a higher level and want all of this darkness gone, then you can begin to see God act, and then you can begin to see more and more miracles and divine interventions, because at that point, that's what human beings want as a species, as spiritual beings. We want better, and God will respond to that. And I think we're seeing that, man. And so, bit long-winded to say, you guys just keep your chins up. I know things are batshit crazy. I know things seem super full of fear and super anxious and in a dark place, and like, oh my God, the deep state's spinning the wheels again to do this and that. And yeah, they're probably going to try to steal the election again. But I also think there's, a reason Trump is pointed toward safeguarding the election and making sure you make it too big to rig. And, Joe said earlier, Trump really doesn't say things that aren't true. In 2016, he said, we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to beat her in a landslide. 2020, he said, they're going to steal it. They're going to steal the election. They're going to take it from us. This year, he's saying, we're going to win. We're going to win in a landslide. So I tend to listen to that a little bit more than I usually would. So you guys just don't black pill yourselves. Don't give up hope. Don't lose your faith. No matter how dark it gets, whatever scare events may happen, whatever may happen, you just keep moving forward and keep your faith and stay strong. We're at like mile 22 of the marathon right now. You've got to get that final burst and that fifth win to push yourself across the finish line. But, together we're strong, divided we fall, man. We've got to keep marching forward in lockstep, shoulder to shoulder, and get rid of this cabal, man. We've got to get rid of this criminal syndicate and this evil that's ruled over us, dude. It's time.
100%. Ladies and gentlemen, Stormy Patriot Joe, Absolute 1776. You can find us all at badlandsmedia.tv with all the shows that we do and collaborations that we do together. So, besides what we got going on here, two last Rumble rants that came in. So let me give them a quick shout out. $17 Rumble rant from Tattoo Teacher. Cake is just the vehicle for the frosting. Enjoy the popcorn. Where we go one, we go all. And the last one, $5 Rumble rant coming in from Miriam44. Awesome show, gentlemen. Thank you. And then the final thought that I'll give you guys. Well, first to the audience, listen, we ran the content commercial free. So do me a favor, stick around for a minute and a half, support the people that support this show, and keep the lights on for me. My final thought for you, Joe and Paul, to kind of take with you, and maybe we can discuss this next time around. There's a saying, nothing can stop what is coming. And man, I have probably spent more time focusing on that statement than anything on the boards. There's just something about that statement that, aside from the power it delivers, there's something conceptually, my brain always goes to tactical and operational, that I'm like, nothing can stop what is coming. Well, it's either A, referencing a biblical, like the hand of God is going to come down and ain't nothing going to stop it. But if it's anything outside of divine intervention, what could it be? And I know we hear the military, but military could be stopped. I know we hear, I started thinking, what's the one thing, if we're saying nothing can stop what is coming, what is that? And that's the court of public opinion. When a percentage of the people are reached, you can't stop a grassroots movement.
Right.
You can't. And so I think the we the people is a lot more powerful than people realize. And I think when the threshold of that court of public opinion is reached, nothing can stop what is coming. And I look forward to the next time we have a conversation, gentlemen. You guys, the links to follow these amazing people down in the description. I will say this, make sure you guys go to Badlands, check out the links. We got a conference coming up in Deadwood, another one coming up in Myrtle Beach. And let me tell you, one of the reasons I look forward to these things, A, I love meeting our audience, but it's the best sleep I get, because when I'm not at this studio, I can't work. And so I'm like, I'm forced to sleep. Like, I got to go to sleep. And so I think John's timing of the conferences are perfect, because it's right around the time that my body's tapped out and I get to sleep. So
that shit don't work for me. Like my actual job is video editing. Of course I get revenue from the streaming and stuff, but my bill payer is my video editing, and I take my iPad with me everywhere I go. So I somehow can't even pull myself away from work at GARTs. Joe can confirm, man. At the GART in Florida, I was sitting there like fixing an episode I was like putting together a pre-record outside, sitting at the bar at the restaurant, and then loading it up and then getting it to stream correctly. It's just, it happens, man. But yeah, you're right, dude. GARTs are fantastic, man. If you have a chance to go to one, make sure you make one. It's all about being surrounded by people of your kind and like mind and really feeling at home. It's a fantastic experience, dude.
Couldn't agree more. You guys, make sure you stick around, support the people, support this show. AlphaWarrior Show. I'm your host, Alpha. I'll catch you guys next time, Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. Till next time, Semper Fi.
I'm excited to announce my all-new mattress topper. In the times we're in, I wanted to bring you the best affordable mattress topper ever. So I took my two best technologies and combined them to make the ultimate mattress topper. And now you can get it for as low as $69.98. Queen size, only $99.98. It all starts with my famous MyPillow foam that provides you that overall full body support. Second is the individual comfort supports that give you an amazing custom sleep experience. It's like it's made specifically for you. The queen size alone has over 14,000 comfort supports. This is the perfect mattress topper to improve any bed. New bed, old bed, your guest beds. Get them for every bedroom in your house. Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the all-new My Mattress Topper for as low as $69.98. Queen size, only $99.98. Don't delay. Order today.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need